Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God. Back with you with the next video in my series reading The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn as read by Lord Naren White. Without further ado, returning to The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. I don't make no moan. Brought you down from what? What was you brought down from? Ah, you would not believe. The world never believes. Let it pass. 'Tis no matter. The secret of my birth. The secret of your birth? Do you mean to say, gentlemen? Says the young man, very solemn. I will reveal it to you, for I feel I may have confidence in you. By rights I am a duke. Jim's eyes bugged out when he heard that. I reckon mine did too. Then the bald head says, No, you can't mean it. Yes, my great-grandfather, eldest son of the Duke of Bridgewater, fled to this country about the end of the last century to breathe the pure air of freedom, married here, and died, leaving a son, his own father dying about the same time. The second son of the late Duke seized the titles and estates. The infant real Duke was ignored. I am the lineal descendant of that infant. I am the rightful Duke of Bridgewater, and here I am, forlorn, torn from my high estate, hunted of men, despised by the cold world, ragged, worn, heartbroken, and degraded to the companionship of felons on a raft. Jim pitied him ever so much, and so did I. We tried to comfort him, but he said it warn't much use. He couldn't be much comforted. Said if we was a mind to acknowledge him, that would do him more good than anything else. So we said we would, if he would tell us how. He said we ought to bow when we spoke to him, and say, Your Grace, or My Lord, or Your Lordship, and he wouldn't mind if we called him plain Bridgewater, which he said was a title anyway, and not a name, and one of us ought to wait on him at dinner, and do any little thing for him he wanted done. Well, that was all easy, so we did it. All through dinner Jim stood around and waited on him, and says, Will your Grace have some of this or some of that? And so on. And a body could see it was mighty pleasing to him. But the old man got pretty silent by and by, didn't have much to say, and didn't look pretty comfortable over all that petting that was going on around that Duke. He seemed to have something on his mind. So, along in the afternoon, he says, Looky here, Bilgewater, he says, I'm nation sorry for you, but you ain't the only person that's had troubles like that. No? No, you ain't. You ain't the only person that's been snaked down wrongfully out in a high place. Alas. No, you ain't the only person that's had a secret of his birth. And by jings, he begins to cry. Hold, what do you mean? Bilgewater kin, I trust you, says the old man, still sort of sobbing. To the bitter death! He took the old man by the hand and squeezed it, and says, The secret of your being, speak. Bilgewater, I'm the late Dauphin. You bet you, Jim and me stared this time. You bet you, Jim and me stared this time. Then the Duke says, You're what? Yes, my friend, it is too true. Your eyes is looking at this very moment on the poor disappeared Dauphin, Louis XVII, son of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. You, at your age? No. You mean you're the late Charlemagne? You must be 600 or 700 years old. At the very least. Trouble has done it, Bilgewater. Trouble has done it. Trouble has brung these grey hairs and this premature balditude. Yes, gentlemen, you see before you, in blue jeans and misery, the wandering exiled trampled off and sufferin' rightful King of France. Well, he cried, and took on so that me and Jim didn't know hardly what to do. We was so sorry, and so glad and proud we'd got him with us too. So we set in, like we done before with the Duke, and tried to comfort him. But he said it warn't no use, nothing but to be dead, and done with it all could do him any good, though he said it often made him feel easier and better for a while if people treated him according to his rights, and got down one knee to speak to him, and always called him Your Majesty, and waited on him first at meals, and didn't set down in his presence till he asked them. So Jim and me set to majestying him, and doing this and that and the other for him, and standing up till he was told we might set down. This done him heaps of good, and so he got cheerful and comfortable. But the Duke kind of soured on him, and didn't look a bit satisfied with the way things was going. Still, the king acted real friendly towards him, and said the Duke's great-grandfather and all the other Dukes of Bilgewater was a good deal thought of by his father, and was allowed to come to the palace considerable. But the Duke stayed huffy a good while, till by and by the king says, Like as now we got together a blamed long time, got to be together, a blamed long time on this higher raft, Bilgewater, and so what's the use of your being sour? It'll only make things uncomfortable. It ain't my fault. I weren't born a duke. It ain't your fault you weren't born a king, so what's the use to worry? Make the best of things the way you find 'em. Says I, that's my motto. That ain't no bad thing that we struck here. Plenty grub and an easy life. Come, give us your hand, Duke, and let's all be friends. The Duke done it, and Jim and me was pretty glad to see it. It took away all the uncomfortableness, and we felt mighty good over, because it would have been a miserable business to have any unfriendliness on the raft. For what you want above all things on a raft is for everybody to be satisfied, and feel right and kind toward the others. It didn't take me long to make up my mind that these liars weren't no kings nor dukes at all, but just low-down humbugs and frauds. But I never said nothing, never let on, kept it to myself. It's the best way. Then you don't have no quarrels, and don't get into no trouble. If they wanted us to call them kings and dukes, I'd hadn't no objections. Long as it would keep the peace in the family, and it weren't no use to tell Jim. So I didn't tell. If I never learnt nothing else out of Pap, I learnt that the best way to get along with his kind of people is to let them have their own way. Chapter 20. They asked us considerable many questions, wanted to know what we covered up the raft that way for, and laid by in the daytime, instead of running. Was Jim a runaway black? Says I. Goodness sakes! Would a runaway black run south? No, they allowed he wouldn't. I had to account for things some way, so I says. My folks was living in Pike County in Missouri, where I was born, and they all died off but me and Pa and my brother Ike. Pa, he allowed he'd break up and go down and live with Uncle Ben, who's got a little one-horse place on the river, 44 miles below Orleans. Pa was pretty poor. He had some debts. So when he'd squared up, there weren't nothing left but $16 and our black Jim. That weren't enough to take us 1,400 mile. Deck passage, no other way. Well, when the river rose, P.A. had a streak of luck one day. He catched this piece of a raft, so we reckoned we'd go down to Orleans on it. Pa's luck didn't hold out. A steamboat run over for the forward corner of the raft one night, and we all went overboard and dove under the wheel. Jim and me come up all night, but Pa was drunk, and Ike was only 4 years old, so they never come up no more. Well, for the next day or two, we had considerable trouble because people was always coming out in skiffs and trying to take Jim away from me, saying they believed he was a runaway black. We don't run daytimes no more now. Nights, they don't bother us. The Duke says, Leave me alone to cipher out a way so we can run in the daytime if we want to. I'll think the thing over. I'll invent a plan that'll fix it. We'll let it alone for today, because of course, we don't want to go by that town yonder in daylight. It might not be healthy. We'll go ahead and stop there for this week. As usual, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care. And thanks again.